Distinguished guests, welcome to Grid Live Pre-Race coverage for the 108th annual Indianapolis 500, 108 runnings of this fantastic race, and we have a fantastic team right here on the air. I'm Joe Sammiego. We have Kobe Lambert from Grid tonight, Jessica Ball, and Emily Sharp, both of them making their Indianapolis 500 coverage debut. And this is all a big thank you to our wonderful Patreon investors. Colin, Deshelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew. You too can invest in the Grid Network. Sign up on our Patreon page. You get some Grid Network stickers sent out to you. We'll mail you a thank you letter as well, so you can show that you support the Grid Network, an up-and-coming racing media journalist company. A big thank you to everyone that does one time through Buy Me a Coffee or YouTube Super Chat. You do a Super Chat on the air, we'll thank you on the air, $10 or more. You'll get some Grid Network stickers sent out to you and your name added to the leaderboard. And of course, simplest way, hit the bell icon, subscribe to us right here on the Grid Network so you don't miss any of our programs, especially this upcoming weekend. We're going to be at Portland for the NASCAR Xfinity Series, Formula E, and so much racing. Of course, we're home of the Grid ranking and the Grid Endurance Performance Index. Now, before we get into some of the action, an update with regards to weather. About 10:45, Doug Bowles said they are monitoring the weather situation. Looks like we might have a little bit of a delayed start for the Indianapolis 500. But as we're on the air, any additional update, we'll be providing it right here. And, of course, everyone in the chat room, we encourage everyone, comment, what's up, team? Let's hope the weather moves through quickly from Ben Schneider. And from Adam, good morning. Heading for the NASCAR Xfinity race yesterday in Charlotte. So a lot of folks enjoying all the racing across the motorsports world. We know Monica's going on right now, delayed after a red flag. Of course, any significant update will provide that as well here. But let's start with the Indianapolis 500, and let's start with the front row. And it's an all Penske front row this year. Of course, one of the big things, nobody had anything for them, and especially Scott McLaughlin, hard to beat, leading the field to the green with a monster pole lap, faster than Alex Palou's record-setting lap from last year. So he is very excited. Get his first pole at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the Indy 500, and Penske is looking strong. They are looking hard to beat. Emily, let's start with you. Team Penske drivers, they're looking to try to dominate this race, try to imitate what we saw in 1994 when Alonso Jr. and Emerson Fittipaldi led just about every lap. Do you think they could dominate the race like that?
Absolutely. I mean, they are really setting themselves up for a great race today. And I think that they have a fire within them to respond to that really unfortunate penalty they were dealt earlier in the season. Of course, the St. Pete win was stripped from Josef Newgarden. Scott McLaughlin took a heavy hit in his championship points and went down to last place in the championship. And Will Power has been trying as hard as he can to really distance himself from any negative remarks surrounding those penalties due to the push to pass. So they are starting on the front row. And really, the one to watch amongst all of them, in my opinion, is going to be Scott McLaughlin. He has been doing his homework. He's been working hard with Simon Pagenaud to really master his oval racing. And he was really the only driver that maintained that over 234 miles per hour average over his 4 laps in qualifying. So I really think Scott McLaughlin, Scotty Mac, Thirsty Threes, is setting himself up for a great day today. He's never placed higher at Indianapolis than 14th in years prior, either qualifying or in the race. So I think given his really dominant race at Barber, he is really the Penske driver to watch, but nothing against our current reigning 500 champion, Josef Newgarden, and then Power is winless this season. So I think that front row is really going to kick us off for an interesting start to the race.
Yeah, I agree with you, Emily. I mean, Team Penske had some really bad luck at the start of the season, but the things that I saw from their practice and qualifying sessions, wow. When we saw Power do those laps, we thought, no, Scott McLaughlin couldn't do anything. And then boom, he managed to do the averages like no tomorrow. It's amazing. But one driver I'm keeping an eye on is definitely Josef Newgarden. He's a master on ovals, won his first Indy 500 in last year as well. And it came down to the last lap. It was a last lap shootout. There were plenty of people that thought that it wasn't necessary to have a last lap shootout after multiple red flags we had last season in the Indianapolis 500. But I felt like it made some entertaining racing. Indy wanted to make sure they had some green flag running towards the end of the race, and it definitely delivered. I know Ericsson was really gutted about that, but I was so delighted that Newgarden got the win, and I'm keeping my eye on him. But I know Will Power is definitely going to have some redemption because he was so close to the pole, so I won't be surprised if he can challenge for them. But I think for the other teams, Team Penske is a team to beat this year.
Yeah, and if you watched the Grid Tonight show, I said this was Team Penske's race to lose, given all the speed we've seen from all 3 entries, Will Power, Josef Newgarden, and Scott McLaughlin. I think Team Penske has the potential to dominate this race, although I don't think it will be on the same level as it saw in 1994 with Alonso Jr. and Emerson Fittipaldi, as you mentioned, Joe. They basically led almost every single lap of that race. I don't think Team Penske is going to go that far this year, but looking at the current weather situation, assuming that it's probably going to be a delayed start, because I've been following that line of thunderstorms, and it looks pretty gnarly for the next couple hours once it gets there. So almost a guaranteed delayed start. And if we're able to get going later on in the evening, there's an even stronger band of storms coming later on. So we may not be racing darkness, which is around 9 p.m. I believe there. And if that's and we also have like with that stronger line of storms coming through, I'm wondering, we may not be racing a lap 200 at mile 500. We might be racing, halfway or whenever the race is going to end. So I think that could potentially throw a wrench in Team Penske's plans, because you're going to see lots of teams and drivers all throughout the field trying to get off strategy. And I think that could set the potential for potentially a surprise winner. You might just have to be in the right place at the right time to make it count. And assuming we get the race in today, that's why I don't think Team Penske will dominate this race. I think we'll see teams trying some crazy strategies that we wouldn't see in normal conditions.
It's going to be really interesting to see how the strategies work out with the threat of rain. We've seen it in other forms of motorsports, especially in oval racing, where you don't have to rain tires. You're going to try to make a strategy to put you towards the front, be more aggressive, when the laps count. And then if you have a caution, the rain shows up, who pits, who stays out. Sometimes the driver that decides, I'm going to stay out and the rain's too much, that could be the end. Hopefully that won't be the case this year where we could get all the laps in. Now, let's keep talking about Scott McLaughlin. Scott McLaughlin, of course, drives the yellow Pennzoil livery known as the Yellow Submarine. His best finish, 14th in the Indianapolis 500 last year. Jessica, he has the car. He has the team. Can McLaughlin put together everything for his first oval win today?
Wow, it's going to be tough for McLaughlin. He does not want to lead the race towards the end of it. So on lap 190 is kind of like the curse lap, if you will. So ideally, you want to be the driver towards the end of the race who's chasing down P1 for the win, because that's what we saw in the last few Indianapolis 500s. We saw that with Pato O'Ward, who was leading Marcus Ericsson in 2022. We saw when Ericsson was leading the final lap and Josef Newgarden was chasing him. McLaughlin does not want to lead the final few laps because otherwise he's going to be in a lot of trouble and everyone's going to be pushing him. So I think McLaughlin would be happy just to be second or third in the most of the race and then challenge for the win towards the end of it. But I think he could possibly do it. He just needs his team around him to potentially back it up. But they all fighting for the same prize in Indianapolis 500. And don't forget, he was a rookie in 2021, but it was his first actual rookie season last year. So he definitely wants a point to prove to make sure that he can win his first Indy 500 because he had a horrific showing last year. I was absolutely gutted for him, but not as much as Will Power like we saw as well. So yeah, as long as he's not leading on the final few laps, he should be okay. He's got to be second.
I totally agree with you, Jess. I totally agree. And to Kobe's point, I think strategy is going to really come into play here. We are monitoring this weather situation. And I think all of the teams, including Penske, are taking the track today with that in mind. I think those teams starting in that second row on are going to be coming with alternative strategies and trying to be as creative as possible to put themselves in that right place. And how many times have we seen that the pole winner, yes, will take the checkered flag and be at the top of the podium. But to your point, you always want to be the chaser rather than the chasee here at Indy because it really sets you up for success. We saw that brilliant win by Josef last year and coming in at the last moment to overtake and bring home the trophy. So I do feel that Scotty Mack has some magic coming into this weekend. He looked so strong in qualifying and he really wasn't declining that as significantly as his Penske teammates with those miles per hour lap averages. So I absolutely agree. He needs to be at least in second place coming into those final laps to have a strong campaign to push for overtake at the end.
Yeah, Scotty Mack is definitely had a strong month of May. I certainly did not have him on my bingo card taking the pole for the 108 in the Indianapolis 500. But Scott McLaughlin, he's been in these situations before, especially during his historic supercars career. He basically said when he put those 4 qualifying laps together, he told himself, I've been here before. It was just like running them qualifying laps in the top 10 shootout at the Bathurst 1000, and we know how good he was at Mount Panorama, and it's just been incredible to see how Scott McLaughlin has adapted to IndyCar, and he's continuing to really show what he can do, and I think that he has the potential to get his first oval win today. I believe it was his very first oval race. He almost won that at Texas Motor Speedway just a couple of years ago. It was the awesome finish when Josef Newgarden went on the outside of him on the final lap coming off of 4 to get the win there at the final moment. So Scott McLaughlin, he really took the oval racing really well. But here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, it's been quite a struggle for him. And if you watch his interviews during the month of May, he said he had like a special person is here helping him along at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And we finally found out who that special person was during the week. Is no other than former Team Penske driver Simon Pagenaud, who's been in his ear. And I just want to say it's really nice to see Simon back at the track. I saw some footage of him and honoring the late Gilles de Ferran's old Indy car. It was a real great tribute there. I hope Simon's doing well. Hope we see him at the track more. And I think that Scott McLaughlin has a real good teacher in Simon Pagenaud, who's been there, done that. He's an Indy 500 champion himself. And and seeing Simon back with his old team at Team Penske helping McLaughlin, just a great sight to see. So I think Scott McLaughlin, has a whole bunch of great people who are going to end up helping him out. And got a comment there from Adam saying if Scotty Mack wins today, he'll add to his legacy. Would be very impressive. Yeah, not many drivers can say that they've won the Bathurst 1000 and the Indianapolis 500.
Scott McLaughlin, a true racer, just goes out there, races for the win, regardless of the discipline it seems. Supercars, IndyCar. I've already believed that he is making a statement. He is going to be an IndyCar star, and he'll be known primarily as an IndyCar driver, racer. And if he wins the Indy 500, that's just going to cement him as an IndyCar racer. Let's talk about a driver that's known as a racer across the spectrum of motorsports. For the first time in 10 years, we have a driver attempting to do the Memorial Day double. Assuming the weather doesn't interfere with Kyle Larson's plan, he will try to become the 5th driver to race at Indianapolis, the Indy 500, and Charlotte, the Coca-Cola 600 on the same day. Kurt Busch finished 6th. The 2014 Indy 500 had an engine blow in the Coca-Cola 600, finishing 40th. That was the last time we saw a driver complete that. Tony Stewart was one of the only drivers to complete all 1,100 miles in 2001, but no drivers have led laps at both races on the same day. Emily, Kyle Larson starting in the middle of the second row. What do you expect from him?
Well, to Kobe's point, what an impressive driver who's shown how he can adapt so well to IndyCar and to have done it so quickly this season. And now he's starting in 5th place for the 500. Of course, we're hopefully going to see him starting from 10th later on today in the 600 in Charlotte. But wow, I just have so much admiration for any driver that comes in and wants to take on a new style of driving and do it at the biggest stage of the entire year for the series, and 2, who seems to have mastered it in such a short period of time. Kyle Larson, what we can expect for him today. I truly think that as long as the weather permits us to kick both of these races off, I see him finishing both races. And I see him finishing both races in the top 10. Of course, he is the points leader in the NASCAR Cup Series, but he has showcased that he's also a very strong addition to the Arrow McLaren team here in the IndyCar Series. And he has brought this quiet excellence with him where he's just kind of keeping his head down. Of course, he's been so gracious with his time and fulfilling any obligations IndyCar has asked him and Arrow McLaren has asked of him. But I'm really one is just a fan of anyone that comes here and does the double between Tony Stewart and Kurt Busch and now Kyle over the years that I've been tuning in to watch this attempt. I have so much admiration for any of those drivers that do that. And 2, as a fan of Kyle Larson, I really hope we can see him finish in the top 10 today. He has the pace. He was 13th in practice earlier this week, so I don't think it's out of the realm for him to have a strong outing today in Indy. But I think everyone around him in Hendrick Motorsports is going to be crossing their fingers that this weather allows him to get this done.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle Larson, I totally agree with you, Emily, is inspiring, because if I go on a different sim or race in a different series with completely different cars, I just can't do it. Whereas Kyle Larson can just jump in an IndyCar car at one race and then go to another race and drive a NASCAR car. And he actually did well in NASCAR last week as well. But I'm just a bit worried about the weather personally as well. I've just been reading that he's not very hopeful that he's going to run both, but I do hope he does get a chance to run in the Indy 500, because he's shown he can adapt to it, he can learn from it as well, ready for next year's edition. And I know Kyle Busch shown him a letter the other day to Kyle Larson, giving him some advice, which is really great to see. And if he could finish, I would say, in the top 5, that would be a win for him. And I know I've been saying that to Joshua Birch earlier on, that for the NASCAR fans, they want Kyle Larson to do well in the Indy 500, right? It's one of their drivers. But in NASCAR, they want them to be Kyle Larson to be behind them. So I know the NASCAR drivers will be cheering Kyle Larson on, and they'll be hoping that the IndyCar race will still go ahead, and the NASCAR race could be delayed as well. So you'll still be lucky and possibly still do it. Fingers crossed he gets to do it, because it will be a great testament to how adaptive he is to both cars. So I'm looking forward to it.
A lot of folks looking forward to it. For Kyle Larson to be doing this, I just think it really adds on to his big racing resume. He is a true racer. A few years ago, he said if he won the Chili Bowl, that would be the biggest win of his career. I'm pretty sure that would change if he somehow was to win the 108th running of the Indianapolis 500. Kobe, it sounds like we did get some news from Indianapolis Motor Speedway, though.
Yeah, John, before we go into the news, I wanted to add one more point for Larson. He's not just representing the NASCAR community. He's also representing the local grassroots racing community, the midgets and sprint car racers out there. And that's what Chase Briscoe said during the media availability. He said, I just see Larson as a sprint car guy. All the guys, who busted their butts growing up, racing on dirt all throughout the week. To see a guy like Larson go there, race at the Speedway, really special to have the sprint car racing community there. We haven't really seen like a dirt guy go run the Indy 500, since we had the late Brian Clausen there. So it's great to see the grassroots racers represent there, so they can see one of their favorites on dirt, compete at the greatest spectacle in racing. That's right, Joe. Just got some breaking news from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Got this statement saying, given the proximity of lightning moving towards the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, a decision has been made to pause the pre-race ceremonies and move fans out of the grandstands and the snake pit. So if you're currently at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, please make your way off the facility into a safe place until the storm system passes. Spectators are encouraged to follow the instructions of the IMS team members. They should exit the grandstands in an orderly fashion and implement their personal safety plans. So therefore, the start of the 108th run of the Indianapolis 500 will also be delayed. Additional updates on timing will be communicated. So and there it is right there on the screen. So it looks like we'll be waiting for a little bit, and hopefully this weather system will clear so we can get the greatest spectacle in racing started. And it seems like it might take 3 hours to get the show done and get the show in. And since sunset's after 9, we might be racing towards darkness or halfway. We just have to wait and see how that goes. But we're going to be hopeful that we can get a full show in today. And if it comes to it, tomorrow. And now moving on to the next part of our show. Some people might have called him a sleeper for the last few years, but I don't expect him to be a sleeper anymore. And that driver is Santino Ferrucci and AJ Foyt Racing's iconic number 14 car, who's looking to bring them a big win. Ferrucci is trying to finish in the top 10 for the 6th consecutive time in his 6th Indy 500. It's really crazy that he still has not finished outside the top 10 yet. And the last time AJ Foyt went to Indy 500 victory lane was in 1999 with Kenny Bragg. So, Jess, now aligned with Team Penske, can Ferrucci bring home another win for AJ Foyt?
Honestly, he had a good chance last year. He was running a lot in the lead as well, and he was dominating in some parts of the race too. And he ran the American flag in his livery, and a lot of people wanted to him to do well. But there are certain people that do not like him and do not want him to do well. Personally, it would be great for him as well. AJ Foyt, it is a prestigious name in the INDYCAR community as well, and it'll just be brilliant for him to get a fantastic result. He is starting a bit lower than he was in the last Indy 500, but that doesn't mean he can it doesn't mean he can go and pass and make overtakes. We've seen many cautions before in the Indy 500. I think we only had 2 cautions, then we had a few red flag periods, and that allowed Santino Ferrucci just to catch up. But you can't always rely on cautions all the time. But we know it's going to be more exciting than Monaco. We know that the Indy 500 is such a great track to pass in. So I'm expecting Ferrucci to challenge for the win at some point, because we've seen people go from as lower down as 15th before to win the Indy 500. So it is still possible for Santino Ferrucci to potentially bring another win for AJ Foyt.
Yeah, and one of those people, Jess, to your point, probably wishing him not to be ending up on podium is his little spurring buddy, Romain Grosjean. He's been kind of in our awareness level for the past couple of weeks for the wrong reasons. But I think that just kind of adds to how wildly entertaining Santino Ferrucci is. Even in qualifying, he was getting so close to that wall. It just seems that he is completely fearless in general. But then when he comes to Indy this month, year after year, he just unlock something godlike in the month of May. And at some points, it seems like there is divine intervention where there is someone or something that is keeping him on track to have a really strong finish when he comes to the 500. Obviously, last year he finished third. He has 2 other top 10. So he just is so consistently wicked fast at this track. And like I said, I really do think that he is on another level when he comes here, and to do it in the iconic car that he is doing it in, I think it would be really good for the community and the background and history of his team. The only thing that I think that is going to keep him from a podium this year is, as we've previously mentioned, how strong the Penske team is. I don't think we're in store for a Penske shutout on podium, but I do think that it will keep Ferrucci down in at least top 5, potentially lower, but he is just so wicked fast and consistent when he comes here and seems to escape all signs of danger to keep his car aligned and staying on track.
Escaping all danger. That year when Santino somehow went through the grass, avoided that crash, I remember Dale Earnhardt Jr. was in the commentary box and he said, I like that. I just became a Santino Ferrucci fan. I think a lot of folks saw when it comes to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, he just seems to be on another level. What a feel-good story this would be if he was to get that win and have AJ Foyt up there in victory lane, getting that car race up. I just cannot imagine the emotion that'll be going through the Speedway if AJ Foyt is there celebrating another Indianapolis 500 victory. Santino Ferrucci, it's no doubt he has a polarizing base of fans that love him, fans that love to cheer against him, and some that just wish he wasn't on the track. If he was to get this win, it will be a big statement that you have the car, you could put together a good race at the biggest race of them all, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. You could be up there. He is just so talented. Oval racing in general. I wish we had more oval races like Pocono. If we had Michigan again, I'm really curious to see what he could do in those ovals as well. Bummer we don't have Texas this year, especially now that they got the Penske Alliance. I think they had a lot of potential AJ Foyt racing, and this is just the start of it. Definitely not a sleeper. I think some people are going to be picking him to win this race.
Yeah, and you know who Santino Ferrucci reminds me of around this track? A guy we had racing quite a handful of years ago at this track, and he disappeared off the face of the earth. I keep asking myself every year, what happened to him? You guys remember Carlos Munoz? Yeah, Carlos. Yeah, Carlos Munoz was very impressive around this track, and I still believe if he continued to get good rides at this track, at some point he was going to win this race. It was a shame that we haven't seen him at all the last few years or so. Carlos Munoz he took to this track like a duck takes to water, and it really seems to be the same way with Santino Ferrucci. I think he certainly has potential to win this race, but as we know, although they do have the Team Penske Alliance now, AJ Foyt Racing is still a small team, and certainly their pit crew is not on the same level as Team Penske. So there could potentially be some issues there. And also with the car, Ferrucci has a good car. It may not be as good as the Penske's, but like you said last year, Emily, he was in contention last year. You had Marcus Ericsson, Josef Newgarden duking out on the final lap, and if those two had gotten together and crashed in turn 3, turn 4, Ferrucci would have been right there to, steal the win. And I'll say it would not surprise me if he ends up winning this year's Indianapolis 500. But I definitely think it's going to be quite a tall task. But like we've been saying with the weather situation, anything is possible. You're in the right place in the right time. You might get to drink the milk and kiss the bricks at the end of the day. And I'm moving on. Chevrolet swept the front 2 rows, and the third and fourth rows had teams in the fast 12. Arenas VK leads this group in row 3. Felix Rosenquist is the fastest Honda on the outside of the third row. In the middle, Pato O'Ward was in contention last year until he crashed out. All 3 of them led over 20 laps in last year's race. Emily, do you anticipate all or any of them to run up front and fight for the win?
Yeah, looking at all of them individually, Renus, he's had a very up and down month here at Indy so far. Obviously, he had that unfortunate crash, but to make it to the Fast 12 is quite an accomplishment. But if we zoom out and we look at his past 4 years, he has had a 20th place finish, then an 8th place finish, then a 33rd place finish, and then last year he was 10th. So I think that's really kind of reflective of his month that he's had here at Indy. Hopefully, him and his team are hoping that he places in the higher end of the field versus a lower end this year. And then moving right along to Pato, who has also had a very up and down season. He obviously accumulated that win from Josef Newgarden in St. Pete, but the rest of the season, he's been plagued some really unfortunate errors and penalties, and so it's kind of left him either in the bottom of the field and or in the midfield. And I don't think it's reflective of his capabilities, his driving skills, the team behind him. I mean, that Arrow McLaren team is really making a campaign that they should be talked about amongst the Penskes, amongst the Andrettis, amongst the Chip Ganassis. So I think we have to watch Pato. I think he's hungry. I think he knows he was on the cusp of a win here. So he is going to be hungry and I think very aggressive on the start when this race does get started, to overtake and get himself aligned closer to the front of the field. And then Felix Rosenqvist, someone that I had the pleasure to watch take pole in Long Beach. Again, unfortunately, he wasn't able to convert that to a win at that track, but he's had a fairly consistent season so far. I mean, he finished 5th at St. Pete, 3rd at Thermal, 4th at Barber, and then 10th earlier this month at IMS. That being the lowest of his his race finishes so far. I think he has, again, another wicked fast car behind him. So out of everyone starting in this row, my money is on Felix. It just feels like he is due for some big move to kind of compensate for his pole positions that he's been accumulating. So we got to keep an eye on Felix. I think he, out of everyone in that row, is going to be the one who's going to make some smart strategy moves, get some pace behind him, and get himself closer to the front.
Felix Rosenqvist, last year, he was having a pretty good race with Arrow McLaren. Unfortunately, he hit the wall. Once he hit the wall, we all remember that scary incident with him and Kyle Kirkwood, that tire flying over. I have confidence Felix Rosenqvist is motivated and is capable of going out there, running to the front. Remember, this team, they know how to get it done at Indianapolis. Felix Rosenqvist, he has been really good this year when it comes to qualifying. The races, a little bit of a hit or miss this year, but overall, I think he's one of the drivers to watch. Ryan's VK would be a wonderful feel-good story if he was to go out there, fight for the lead, be up there. And Pato O'Ward, I think out of the three, he has to be one of the favorites in this road to go out there and get the win. Just fast. The McLaren team is looking really good this year. What a stellar lineup of drivers they have. Pato, Alexander Rossi is looking great this year. Of course, Kyle Larson, assuming he's able to start this race today. A lot going on. But at the end, Pato O'Ward, Felix Rosenqvist, I think those are the two drivers that I see potentially going up there, fighting for the win. VK, he could have a good race. I think you brought up a great point, Emily, about the inconsistency. Great one year, not great the next year. Last year was looking good, but then a pit road mistake ruined his day. And Alex Pelosi, will be really interesting to see what all happens. Couple comments in the chat room. I'm surprised Larson's staying at Indy. Of course, that could always change. Weather's playing a factor right now. One of the big things, 500 will mean way more to Larson. I think it's going to be really exciting to see how this all plays out. I hope he stays too. Don't get me wrong, but sometimes unpopular business decisions inevitably win out. And of course, we all know the big thing with Kyle Larson, primarily NASCAR, Coke 600, points, championship implications. But the weather doesn't look too promising over there. So really interesting to see what happens. At the end of the day, I am just excited that we got a potential of VK, Pato O'Ward, and Felix Rosenqvist. They could be up there mixing it with the Penske drivers.
Yeah, Joe, this is quite an interesting group. It seems like in past Indy 500, Arenas VK has always been fast, but, always seems to find himself into trouble or crashing out of this event. So what I want to see from Arenas VK this year, I want to see, has he matured as a driver? Does he know, like, at this point in the race, we don't need to push this hard, that we just need to manage the race, make sure you get to lap 150, and then those final 50 laps, make sure you're in the right place at the right time to strike. And if Arenas VK can do that, I think he can certainly make his way towards the front. And Felix Rosenqvist, I really like what I'm seeing from him to start off this 2024 season. We've seen him, do really well with Meyer Shank Race after the tough year this team had last year. I think Felix could potentially be a spoiler in this year's Indy 500. And you mentioned, Joe, that was a very scary accident he had last year. Hit the wall, come spinning back up in the traffic, then Kyle Kirkwood's tire flying over the catch fence, and barely missing the grandstands. Got very lucky in that situation. And Pato O'Ward, been in contention to win this race the last few years. I think he can certainly do it again, but he made some cryptic comments during the week, which I found very interesting. He was saying if we don't fix, the issue that we've been having, we're not going to have a shot to win. And he never really went into detail like what that potential issue is, but all in all, I think Pato is going to be fine, and we'll probably see him in contention to win this race once again, because all of the Arrow McLaren entries look extremely fast. And now I'm looking at row 4. There's 2 past winners on each side of Kyle Kirkwood, who's in the middle. Takuma Sato and Ryan Hunter-Reay are in part-time rides. Sato back with Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan Racing, and Hunter-Reay giving a good run for Dry and Run will end up making the Fast 12. Takuma Sato has 2 wins here, and Hunter-Reay held off Elio Castroneves to win the 2014 Indy 500. Joe, with these two going for the win or bust, is this a good opportunity for Kyle Kirkwood to follow in the opening laps?
It's interesting because I feel, especially any rookie, the idea would be follow these two towards the front. I would lean more towards Takuma Sato, 2-time winner here, very fast compared to his teammates. Follow him. The thing that's a little bit different, though, I feel with Kyle Kirkwood, he isn't a rookie. This is still very early on in his career. Last year, the Indy 500 didn't go that well. First year with AJ Foyt Racing wasn't exactly the best successful year for him as well. I feel I have the confidence in Kyle Kirkwood to just go out there, run his own race towards the front. He doesn't need to really go learn anything from Takuma Sato. Ryan Hunter-Reay, he could win. He could have a good race there, but I feel he might be a little bit more conservative, where Kyle Kirkwood, his nature, he wants to get towards the front. So I think he doesn't exactly have to follow or learn from those drivers. I think he's going to primarily run his own race.
Yeah, I agree with that. And don't forget Takuma Sato, the 2-time Indy 500 champion. So Kyle Kirkwood has definitely got a lot to live up to. And I remember watching the Indy 500 and saw the crash, I think it was with Felix and Kyle Kirkwood, and he was upside down. And the first thought that I had in my mind was Kyle Kirkwood okay? Luckily, he was fine. The fans were fine because there was a wheel that went on the other side of the crash and just about avoided hundreds of spectators too. But he's just got to avoid some crashes because he didn't finish last time out, and it could have been a great chance for him to get some very good points. So if I was him, I would follow Sato on this one in terms of inspiration for Kyle Kirkwood, because Sato has a good shot for either getting a top 5 in the Indy 500. Ryan Hunter-Reay, of course, he surprised me for making the Fast 12. I wasn't expecting him to be there, but he did a really brilliant job. But for Kyle Kirkwood, as long as he doesn't crash like he did in the 107th running in the Indy 500, then he should be fine. But if not, then it would be a bit of deja vu for what we saw last year. And hopefully you'll be able to finish this one.
To be honest, I don't think Kyle Kirkwood necessarily has to follow, these two great veterans of the Indy 500 in Takuma Sato and Ryan Hunter-Reay. I just think he just needs to run his own race and he'll be fine. As we saw, Kyle Kirkwood was having a really good run in last year's race until, that scary incident with Felix Rosenqvist took place. And I think that Kirkwood can run extremely well again, and we'll see and we'll see him potentially in contention. I don't know if Kirkwood will be one of the drivers fighting for the win, but I certainly think a top 10 is certainly not out of the question. But early in the race, if there's opportunities, to follow Takuma Sato, around Hunter Ray, see what lines they're taking and all of that, so certainly can't hurt at all.
Be interesting to see how it all works out. Let's talk about a driver that just missed out on the Fast 12, Colton Herta, who lost the points lead in the Saniso Grand Prix at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. He was bumped out of the Fast 12 by VK's impressive run late in the day. Herta, best finish was 8th in 2020. Now, last year, he finished 9th, so just one spot short of his best race. And of course, one of the big things, he's probably motivated to try to reclaim that points lead. Jessica, do you believe Colton Herta can focus on racing for the win, or does the point picture potentially distract him?
It was gutting to see Colton Herta not make it to the Fast 12, because during the practices before the qualifying, it looked like he would make it. And just to put it into perspective, he's had no top 5 finishes in 5 Indianapolis 500 tries. He was up there last season, but there was some issues with him. Herta's best finish was 8th in 2020, one of his first editions in the Indy 500. And since him being an Andretti Motorsport, I think he's starting to come together. And there's always a pressure in it when Andretti, obviously they are big named in motorsport, should be in F1 personally, but I think Colton Herta, I think, will just need to focus on getting into the top 10 before he gets into the fight for the race win, because he didn't even make it the Fast 12. There's lots of different stages. He's going to hope that there's chaos happening in front of him, because I don't think there's much chance for him to get near the front. But you never know with the Indy 500. It hopes to love you back, and with Herta, he's going to hope to finish higher than 8, because otherwise he's going to be in a bit of trouble. But yeah, no top 5 finishes in his first 5 Indy 500 tries. So let's hope he could do better than that this evening, if it happens.
So 2 points I agree with you, Jess. First, yes, I also think Andretti Global should be in F1. So hopefully in the next 2 years here, we can see them in a Monaco entry. But back to IndyCar. Colton is really coming into his own. I think he has put it on himself. I think the rest of the team sees him as the team leader at Andretti Global. And he, by a product of that, is very hyper-focused, to your point, Joe, on the points and the standings overall for himself within the championship race. So I think, though, he has been very, very cautious and aware of where he is in the championship running. Of course, he has moved down in the past couple of weeks. Unfortunately, he's down in 4th now. But it's the Indy 500. This is the race to take risks. This is the race to lay it all out there and to go for the milk shower at the end of the race. The rest of the year, yes, be strategic, be hyper-focused on the points and the standings. But at the end of the day, for this race, you walk away as a legend, and you will be known as one for the rest of your career. So I hope he is able to kind of let the point strategy go and just really hone in on his racecraft and his race today. I think he does have a fast vehicle. I, too, was also very surprised and gutted that he was outside of the Fast 12. But I think he is a very smart driver. I think he has overtake opportunities today. And I hope he lays it all out there and is able to focus on the race ahead of him today, and hopefully to have a very great outcome on the at the end of it.
Yeah, when it comes to the Indy 500, if you go through the field of 33, you probably find, very few drivers, if any, who are saying that we're focused on points racing today, trying to have a good points day. When it comes to this particular race, points don't even matter when it comes to the Indianapolis 500. I really think post Indy 500, that's when you start to, look at the big picture of the championship and all of that. But when it comes to the greatest spectacle in racing, I don't think any driver really cares what the points look like. You don't care if you're leading the championship. You don't care if you're 20th in the championship right now. All you care about is going out there and taking the checker flag after lap 200 at the 500-mile mark. And for Colton Herta specifically, I don't think he's going to be thinking about points either. That he's going to be focused on trying to race for the win or anything like that. So if it's the last lap, you're exiting the backstretch coming into turn 3, you're trying to make a move on the outside, which is something you really probably shouldn't do at Indy. I think that would be a move that Herta or any driver would take, to try to stay on the outside and try to win the Indy 500. I've seen quite a few drivers, make bold moves on the outside, especially, that social media clip of Alexander Rossi that's gone, that went viral a few years ago. Still seeing clips of that today, past 5, 6, 7. How many? I don't even know how many cars on the outside. Yeah, so I really don't think that points is going to be in anyone's mind today. All they care about is sipping the milk and kissing the bricks.
Victory lane, the milk, the bricks, having your face on the Borg Warner trophy, all huge moments that a driver wants to capture for winning this race. One of those drivers looked very good last year until Ryan's VK sort of ended his opportunity. Well, more ruined his day. He still managed to come back to finish up towards the front, but he had to battle Alex Palou. Now, he was the favorite to win according to DraftKings before qualifying. After qualifying, that has changed to where Alex Palou, he is now a plus 1,200, 7th favorite. So that means he's behind the Penske drivers, behind the McLaren drivers, including Kyle Larson, who's making his first start. Alexander Rossi, who is also in this race, having a good month of May. Looked like for a while he may be potentially challenging the Penske drivers for that pole. Going back to Alex Palou, though, 14th, didn't make the Fast 12. Last year looked great, but VK, as I mentioned, crashed into him in pit road. Emily, how does Palou approach this race knowing he has a fast car, but he has to get around 13 other drivers?
Yeah, what I would say to DraftKings, that sounds all great in theory and paper, but you are looking at our current championship leader. We are looking at a 2-time IndyCar champion. We are looking at a multi-time race winner, including earlier this month at IMS at the Grand Prix. And of course, earlier this year, he took home the $1 Million Challenge. He has been on a cusp here for a win for the past few years. Of course, he held pole position last year, wasn't able to convert it. So I think he has significant potential for a win this year. And yeah, I'm going to say win. I'm not just going to say moving up through the field. I was very shocked that he found himself outside of the Fast 12. So what we can expect from him, I think he is going to be very smart in what he approaches here. If this was a Santino Ferrucci coming from 14th, I don't know if I'd feel so bold enough to say amongst all of our viewers that I think he could safely find his way to the front of the field. But with Alex Palou, he is such a good strategic race car driver. There's a reason why there's all of this drama happening off track regarding him and what team he ends up with, because he really is that good. So I really think that we can see a long game played out by Mr. Palou today. I think we will see some smart overtakes, and I'm really excited to watch the DHL number 10 and see what he's able to accomplish.
I think Palou's approach is going to be the same as we've seen with any of the races that he's been in. He's going to be cool, calm, and collective. And he's also trying to keep that impressive top 10 streak alive. It's really crazy stat that Palou still has not finished outside of out of the top 10 since the end of the 2022 season, which is really mind-boggling given all the things that can potentially go wrong. I know he's starting outside of the top 10 today, but given the speed of Palou's car, the Ganassi cars haven't really been as strong as they have been in recent years, but I think Palou and that team will make it work, and he will find his way into the top 10 and keep that top 10 streak alive. So I think at least that's going to happen. I don't know if Palou's going to win the race this year, but I definitely wouldn't put it past him. He was a contention to win this race, just few years ago, battling Elio Castroneves in the final laps. Could have very well already been an Indy 500 champion. And I think at some point, he's going to be due to finally get that win, and it very well could be this year. And we've certainly seen drivers come from deeper in the field to win this race before, so it's certainly not out of question.
I agree with Kobe. It definitely isn't out of the question. And don't forget, he's 26 years old. He's won multiple championships in his career as well. I'm surprised he hasn't won as many Indy 500s as well. He's definitely an inspiration to the INDYCAR world, the Spaniard as well. His average finishing position last season, I believe, was 3.71, which just goes to show, apart from obviously the Indy 500, he was very, very consistent throughout. And he's got to show his consistency throughout here as well. He's been able to adapt to multiple cars as well throughout his career, because he competed in Euro Formula Open as well, so he does have that experience in single seaters. But I think, like with Newgarden, it took him a while after even if he's won multiple championships to win his first Indy 500. Palou, I think it's going to be tough this year, but if he gets into the top 5 in the Indy 500 this year, I will not be surprised, because last year he had an incident in the pit lane with VK. He still managed to finish in the top 5. So I think a top 5 is still winning the question of Alex Palou. He's such a talented driver.
Alex Palou is so talented. Without a doubt, I see him working his way towards the front. The question will be, does he have anything for those Penske drivers? They are very fast. The 3 Chevrolets in the front row. In general, Chevrolet has been very fast, but maybe Honda has something a little bit extra for race trim. Will be interesting to see how this all plays out. Now, of course, one of the rows everybody will be looking at, besides the front row, I have to say, is row 7, a very experienced row 7. Marco Andretti, Helio Castroneves, and Scott Dixon. 5 Indy 500 wins in this row, 4 from Castroneves, Scott Dixon with 1, and Marco Andretti looking to break the Andretti curse that seems to be here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. All 3 were not happy at qualifying, though. Not exactly going their way. And Dixon is the only full-time driver in this row. And we're wondering how many more seasons he has left with him full-time. Helio, he is looking to make history, to be a standalone with 5 Indianapolis 500 wins. Kobe, when it comes down to this, which driver will you be paying the most attention to this weekend?
Well, based on these 3 drivers you just mentioned, I think the one I'm going to be paying most attention to is Helio Castroneves. I know heading into the month of May, Ben Snyder from LastCar.info and Grid Encore said that you believe that Helio could get the drive for 5 this year, and it'll be interesting to see if you still keep Helio for your pick or winner pick, because surprisingly, Helio Castroneves hasn't really been in the mix at all during the month of May. He really hasn't shown the speed in the car that we've seen the last few years or so, and I wonder if he'll be able to put something together with that car and be in contention during the race. But watching Helio's interviews during practice and all of that, he was basically saying, hey guys, we're still here, but don't look at us and all of that. So I guess Helio just kind of wants to sit in the background, have everyone overlook him, and then when it's time to pounce, he'll be ready to go. It will be such an amazing storyline if Helio Castroneves can get that 5th Indy 500 win, and then he will have the most wins of all time. That would be a really special moment, and it'll be interesting to see if Helio can, fly under the radar all month long, and then finally get the win at the end.
Well, I think I agree with you on Castroneves in terms of history, because he was one of the first drivers to win 2 Indy 500 championships in a row. But I've got to keep my eye on Scott Dixon. Scott Dixon has a very good car again this year. He's so used to endurance racing as well. So he's used to driving ovals for a long period of time as well. And again, he's so adaptive to other cars. And he's run from that road before. So he's probably going to use that experience to his advantage. And he's had brilliant oval races throughout his Indy 500 career, where it just ended on the final lap to win that one. So yeah, I'm keeping my eye on Scott Dixon as well, but Castroneves is definitely a close second, because he's just been there to pick up the pieces, and it was obviously a shame where he didn't win last year as well, because that would have been amazing. But that just keeps my mind on whether Newgarden is going to do the double, because Ericsson almost did it last year, win 2 Indy 500s in a row. I just wonder if Newgarden is going to beat have the same Castroneves record and have win 2 Indy 500s in a row. It's still possible, but yeah, the one I'm keeping my eye on is Scott Dixon.
Scott Dixon, so hard to believe, just one Indianapolis 500 win. All his user in the chat room, Ben said he's still going with Helio Castroneves for pick winner, and Denny, though in hindsight he probably should have not stuck with Max Verstappen. So we'll give a spoiler alert a little later on in the program. With that said, let's go ahead and do something. I think for Emily and Code, this is our first time doing this. Indianapolis 500 lightning round.
Yes.
So, Jessica, starting with you, Callum Ilott is looking for a good run. Does a win complicate McLaren's driver situation?
Definitely, because Callum Ilott's Indy 500 run in the qualifying was amazing. He went from lower down in the grid last year to finish in a very comfortable position as well. And obviously, Teo Pourchaire is joining the McLaren fold full-time from Detroit onwards. So if Callum Ilott does well, McLaren are going to have a very tough decision. But if Callum Ilott does not get the McLaren seat, I'm sure Prema will be looking in Callum's mirrors and saying, well, if McLaren doesn't take that opportunity, I can snatch Callum for a 2025 Indy seat.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Jess. We just signed Teo Pourchaire to Aero McLaren, and it looked very promising from his entry at Long Beach. So Callum does well. It kind of throws everything into chaos once again for this team. And I do want to note, Aero McLaren's kind of turning into this aggressive, we need to see you perform environment that we're familiar with Red Bull Racing.
Yes.
So it's going to be interesting to watch. Regardless, I think either of those drivers, including David Malukas, who just unfortunately had that terrible injury that took him out this season, I think they're all going to end up with good drives in whatever series. But yeah, good point, Joe. We have to see what's going to happen today.
I'm actually glad you brought up that point, Emily, because on a several Grid Tonight episodes ago, we were talking about this topic, and we said that is the McLaren IndyCar team basically becoming the Red Bull F1 team in terms of how cutthroat they are. But to answer the question you asked, Joe, I don't think that a potential win by Callum Ilott in the Indy 500 will complicate the driver situation for this year. But for 2025, absolutely. Yeah. Pato O'Ward just signed a contract extension. I think the one who could be in trouble would be Alexander Rossi in that number 7. And Teo Pourchaire does really well. He might, sign to a contract extension with McLaren as well. But as far as this year, I think that the sponsors, really want to see one driver in that car. They've already committed to Teo Pourchaire. So I think Pourchaire is going to be in that number 6 car this year, no matter what.
Marcus Armstrong, Kiffin Simpson, both rookies in row 6. How will they approach their race, Emily?
I think to learn as much as possible, just to put it very frankly. The last time we saw a rookie win was Alexander Rossi. Of course, he's starting in row 2 today. Not sure if those two drivers have that within them to overtake and take in a win. So I think learn as much as possible, put in a clean race, finish all 200 laps, and take something away for seasons to come.
I agree with Emily. Just finishing an Indy 500 as a rookie is always a great achievement, but everyone's always got to be fighting for the win, haven't they? I know, obviously, Alexander Rossi did it in 2016, I believe, as a rookie. So I think it's not out of the question, but we know with these type of drivers, I don't think they have it in them this year. So have some fun. And if there's a carnage happening, try and avoid it, and you can get some decent points and learn from it from next year.
Yeah, I certainly have to agree with that. I really think that for Marcus Armstrong, Kiffin Simpson, this is just going to be a learning experience for them. Marcus Armstrong, his very first race on an oval, unfortunately, wasn't able to run on an oval prior to this. So, this is quite baptism by fire to run on this 2.5 mile super speedway. In your first oval race, Kiffin Simpson, he got to run some ovals and Indy Next, but nothing like this. Since they took away the Freedom 100, the Indy Next cars are not able able to run on the bigger oval track. So I really believe that for Armstrong and Simpson, this is just going to be about a learning experience. But who knows? Like you said, Emily, Alexander Rossi won this race as a rookie, and I guess it's not out of question, especially with the weather situation. I know I keep mentioning that a lot, but I think the weather is going to play a huge factor in what happens today.
Agustin Canapino, Stingray Robb, Christian Rasmussen only have 2 Indy 500 starts between the 3 of them. Who finishes ahead, Kobe?
This may surprise you, but I'm all aboard with Agustin Canapino. I've been very impressed with him during the month of May. And as we mentioned during our week of Indy 500 practice coverage, if it wasn't for, the misfire in the Chevrolet engine, Canapino probably would have been in the Fast 12. He was on pace to make the Fast 12, which will be very impressive for a small team like Junko's Hollinger Racing. And I think Canapino is really starting to feel more comfortable in the INDYCAR, and I believe he can have a solid run today. I don't really have a prediction of where he'll finish, but I think if he stays out of trouble, he can really have a strong result. And looking at Stingray Robb, I don't think he's on the same level as Santino Ferrucci around this track, and Christian Rasmussen. That's one of the drivers in the field that that has kind of scared me the most this month of May, because he's been making some very aggressive moves. I believe it was Colton Herta, who shot him the bird down the backstretch. So I think if Christian Rasmussen keeps living on the edge here, he might be one of the cars who ends up crashing out of the race. So the rookie's going to have to try to tone it down a little bit.
I have to agree with Kobe there. I know people may be surprised, but Canapino's stats speak for themselves, that he can climb up where he wants to. And I do remember in last year's Indy 500, if he didn't have to pit for fuel towards the end of the race, he was a net, I think, 3rd as in one of his first seasons in the Indy 500. So I'm not going to count him out for a chance to do better out of the 3 drivers today. They do have some experience, but with Canapino, he definitely has the stats to back up. And don't be surprised if he's one of the drivers who will surprise us the most in a good way today.
We're here to surprise everyone, because I also agree with both of you, Kobe and Jess. Canapino is who I'm also backing. He has such a strong background in his Argentinian stock car racing, so I'm going with him. He has the background, he has experience. Yes, 2nd season here in IndyCar, but only up from here, and one to watch for sure.
His teammate Roman Grosjean starting 26th, but has crashed out of his 2 Indy 500 starts. Jessica, can he get in the top 10?
Grosjean. Every time he runs the Indy 500, he tends to crash around the same place, around the same time. So I know people are going to hate me for this. I think it's going to be the year where he potentially could finish a 500. I'm not going to say he's going to do well, because he's probably going to be near the back, I think, due to his car. But I think he's at least going to finish the race. And if he doesn't finish, then Josh, I owe Josh something afterwards, after the Indy 500 broadcast.
I'm going to go positive with you too, Jess. I feel like whatever divine intervention that exists for Santino Ferrucci by the nature of law should also allow Roman to finish race. He's just been in the wrong place at the wrong time, it feels like, on some of these outings. So I'm going to think positively. I don't know if we're going to get a top 10 finish, but I think we should be all rooting for Romain Grosjean to finish this race.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. I think Grosjean has potential to finish his first Indy 500, unless he gets by Santino Ferrucci, because then we know he's going to crash there, given what those two have been going through for the last month or so. But yeah, it's been kind of odd for Grosjean so far. It seems like he just keeps pushing the limits too hard and ends up crashing out. But I think this year I'll go positive with you guys. I think he can finish, but I definitely think it will not be a top 10 finish.
Over on Road Trend, Christian Lundgaard, Connor Dale, and Pietro Fittipaldi. Is the win of the Indianapolis 500 a realistic goal or more wishful thinking? What do you think, Emily?
I used up all of my positive energy for Roman in that previous answer, so I'm going to have to unfortunately go with wishful thinking on this one. However, our personality driver, Connor Daly, wow, like he is just someone who has been such a great representative for the sport. Just seems like the happiest guy. I love any opportunity we get to see him on the track, off the track. Do I think his personality will put him on the podium? No, but I'm hoping that all of them can at least have a strong outing today.
Yeah, coming from row 10 on the grid, it's definitely going to be quite an uphill battle to get in contention. But I really don't think a win is a realistic goal for those drivers. Two of those cars are the RLO cars, Lundgaard and Fittipaldi. They've been struggling for speed outside of Takuma Sato, so it could be a long day for them. Connor Daly, I think, we've seen with his teammate Ryan Hunter-Reay, the Dry and Run Bowl cars always show up fast in it, so I think Connor can definitely move up through the running order. But once again, the weather situation, who knows? You could be out front at the right time, when that nasty line of thunderstorms comes later on in the evening, and you could end up winning this race. And I believe back in what year was it? No. I was thinking of a different situation, but yeah.
Well, I think I have to agree with Emily on this one. Wishful thinking, unfortunately. I don't think I could see any one of those drivers winning the Indy 500, but with Connor Daly, I like the tenacity that he brings with the overtakes that he makes as well. He always likes to bring some entertainment, and of course we've got Christian Lundgaard. He didn't do as well last year. He almost got knocked out of the Indy 500 last year, but luckily he just missed out of getting in that last road shootout this year. So it is an improvement, but he definitely would need a miracle. And with Fittipaldi, he was almost in the same bubble as well. He just about made it. I believe he was 30th. So I think it's going to be a bit of wishful thinking. But if I would say anyone had a chance, it'll have to be Connor Daly.
Wishful thinking. Everyone's thinking they'll love to drink the milk, but so few are able to do that. Only one today. One of those drivers hopeful to do that. I think a lot of folks will say it's wishful thinking. This person's probably thinking it will just be the ultimate way to forget what has been a dreadful month for me. Graham Rahal once again starting last in this race, and he was hopeful Nolan Siegel would not get a faster 4-lap average on the last row shootout. In a twist of fate, Nolan's race ended abruptly on his second lap, crashing into the wall during the last row shootout. So Nolan Siegel not in the race, but again, no celebration for Graham Rahal. 33rd, and the team may not be the most happiest place, as we saw during that, with costly errors made, mistakes that just seemed from a loose wheel, the lasers not reading the car right. Jessica, when it comes to Graham Rahal, what is the goal for today at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway?
I think after last year, Joe, it's just to finish, because, I mean, you having a team owned by your family can only go so far. And I remember his attitude when it was announced where he was going to be on the last row shootout. He said, well, there's nothing more that he could have done. Well, I was like, excuse me, there were plenty other drivers that had less experience than him, and his teammates near qualified for the Indianapolis 500 and qualified much better than him. So it really is no excuse. But I have to say, he kind of redeemed in my eyes when he made some very kind words about Seagull, because obviously he's very successful in previous series. And for Seagull's benefit, I really do hope he's back competing next year for the Indy 500, because he may have missed out this year, but next year I think he's got the redemption in his eyes and the determination to do really well. But in my opinion, he needs to just finish, hope that there's trouble behind him. And he has done well in IMS, for example, last year. So he's got to think along those lines as well. Ovals may not be strong, but he's counted his lucky stars that issues would gone wrong for Seagull, because otherwise he would have been out of it anyway, because Seagull was on fire towards the end of his lap before he crashed out.
Yeah, it's just so unfortunate to have watched what he went through last year, and now again, it's just so I don't know what other word to say other than unfortunate. I mean, as someone who has been watching Graham for years, we know what he's capable of, and it's just certainly disappointing to see him at the very last spot on the grid. So to your point, Jess, I think we need to hope for him to be able to finish this race. I think that's his biggest goal. I think additionally, as someone who is as seasoned as he is, if we're feeling frustrated as a viewer watching him, he's probably feeling frustrated within himself, within his team. I got the opportunity to watch him at Long Beach. He was running pretty well, and then he had an extremely costly pit lane error with his crew, and again, just very out of character for that team. So I would hope that he is able to stay positive through all of this. With that being said, he's not getting too frustrated, and hopefully a positive mindset helps him pick up a few spots. And he doesn't see himself ending the race in last place. But man, it's just so unfortunate to watch, again, another great representative of this sport struggle 2 consecutive years at its biggest stage.
Yeah, I have to agree with the both of you. I think that the most obvious goal for Graham Rahal in the race is just to simply finish the race. And I know that probably sounds bad, for Graham. Obviously, that the goal is not even try to get a top 10, not even a podium or get the win. It's just to simply finish. Given all the struggles this team has had the last couple of years at this track, I think just finishing would be a huge victory for them, because they've really been through it. But looking at Graham Rahal, he's no stranger from starting deep in the field of this race, and driving all the way to the front. Look what he did in 2011. He started 30th, drove all the way up to third, and then 2016 from 26th to 14th. 2018 he started 30th again and drove all the way up into the top 10. So Graham Rahal, he can certainly drive through this field, and starting at the very back. So there's nowhere to go but up.
Nowhere to go but up. Graham Rahal, a lot of folks are going to be following him, see what he could do in this race, and potentially if he could pull out the win. Jess, I mentioned pull out the win. Let's talk about everyone's favorite game, pick a winner.
Yes, it is time for the Indianapolis 500 pick a winner. Nobody will be scoring the 10 bonus points for sweep in the weekend, unfortunately. But you can see on our leaderboard, Matthew currently leading by 7 points to Ben Schneider in second. Kofi, you're doing quite well in third place, so you're hanging in there. I wonder if you're going to score some more points after tonight, of course. We had 2 Formula E races. We had the MotoGP Grand Prix, and we just had Monaco. I was going to spoil it, but I'm not, because I hate being rude on that one. So for the 108 Indianapolis 500, we'll start with Emily, then Kobe, and then Joe. Who do you think is going to win this edition? Emily, you first.
Well, as our viewers can see, this is my first ever Grid Live. I figured I would go bold for the biggest race of North American season, the greatest spectacle of racing. I'm also going to go bold. Hello, Palou. I know Penske is looking extremely strong, but I think Alex Palou, the man from Spain, he is going to make his way up to the front and get some major accomplishments done for Chip Ganassi. So I'm going with Alex Palou.
And I'm gonna go with a Chevrolet driver, and not from Team Penske. I'm gonna go with a driver from Arrow McLaren, but not the one that you're thinking. He was fast in qualifying. His car looked good all month long. I think Alexander Rossi is gonna get his second Indy 500, and we'll see him get another Indy 500 jacket. I don't know if you guys saw this on social media, but now they're giving blue jackets away to the winners of the Indianapolis 500, similar to getting your green jacket for winning the Masters at Augusta in Georgia.
I'm going to go with a very bold one as well, too. I'm mainly going because I just want to see AJ Foyt in victory lane. I'm going with Santino Ferrucci. Get it done. A huge moment. Not often you could pick AJ Foyt Racing and Santino Ferrucci the way they've been running, but That could be the big story. I think the crowd will be just full of joy to see AJ in victory lane. That's my bold pick a winner.
I think most of you have gone very bold. I like it. I'm not going quite as bold, but we have quite a while to think about it because we don't know when the Indy 500 is going to start. I think we're going to see something similar to Castroneves, someone who's won last year. I think he's going to win this year because he's starting in a good position. I think Newgarden is going to win his second Indy 500 in a row. He has the card to do it with Team Penske. He's got a really good shot. As long as he's not leading on the final few laps, he should be absolutely fine. So I think Josef Newgarden is going to win. And due to the rain delay, we still have plenty of time to get involved in our socials by going on to X and TikTok and also commenting on the YouTube chat on who you think is going to win the Indy 500. You have until lights out to get your picks in. And that is the Pick a Winner segment. Back to you, Joe.
Yeah, that's Pick a Winner. Considering he might fall off the podium, Kobe, you've been scoring points. You got 8 correct guesses still far this month. What an amazing
do better than me.
So, and of course, for everyone, first-time viewers, Kiska in 11th place. That's our Grid Network work dog. They just go with every time Max Verstappen wins. So we encourage everyone.
Not today.
Not today. So we encourage everyone comment with Pick a Winner. Never too late. Bonus points if you're outside the top 10, and bonus points if you're outside the top 20. With that said, still right now the Indianapolis 500 looks to be on a bit of a weather delay. Weather forecast shows a potential window about the 4 p.m. area. So they're hopeful once this weather system goes through, hopefully fast enough, they're going to be using some Air Titans leased out to dry the track, get it ready for racing, and with a much later start. So far, it still looks like Kyle Larson's plan is to run the Indianapolis 500, but of course, that could be changing. We'll be updating that on our Grid Network social media, so be sure to follow us across social media. We're on Twitter, Threads, and of course, right here on YouTube. Hit the bell icon, subscribe so you don't miss any of our programs. A big thank you to everyone that invests in us, from everyone that does YouTube Super Chat, Buy Me a Coffee, and our Patreon investors. They have gotten Grid Network stickers mailed out to them, along with a thank you letter. Calling the show, Mark, Robb, and David Matthew. You sign up, your name will be in gold as the newest member of the Grid Network investment team. We really appreciate everyone tuning in. A couple more comments before we go off the air. We have Adam saying for the Coca-Cola 600, he's going with William Byron and Scotty Mack for Pick a Winner. So a lot of folks still doing Pick a Winner, and potentially with this delay, plenty of time to still guess who wins and get yourself on the leaderboard. For Emily, Jessica, we have Kobe and myself, Joe. Thank you for watching today's program. We'll see you next time. Enjoy the races.